If you've not been with us maybe ever or over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, then what you wouldn't know is we started a series called Back to Your Future, and what we're doing is studying the book of Proverbs. And this morning we're going to finish that series up, and James, who directs our student ministry, is going to open the Word and teach this morning. So James, come on up here and he'll crack open the Word.
Hi, how's it going? So, like Adam said, we've been going through this series of Back to Your Future, and the idea behind it is that we make choices every day, and that the choices we make, some have big ramifications on our future, some have small ramifications, and some really have no consequence on our future. But the hard part is, how do we figure out which is which? How do we know what choices are going to have big impacts and what choices are going to have no impact? And while we're not really talking about the no impact stuff, we looked at the book of Proverbs, and it lays out pretty clearly these themes just keep coming through Proverbs, this book of wisdom that says if you look at this stuff, it's gonna make your future better. You're going to see these things in your life, and you're going to see these trends, and good things will come if you pay attention to them, and if you pay attention to the choices you make around them. And if you don't pay attention to them, you're probably just going to be floating in this nebulous web of your future that you're not really directing. So we started talking about this. We talked about wisdom and kind of laid the foundation for this book. And then we started talking about the who. Through Proverbs, they talk about who, the people you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with good people, if you listen to good people, if you're getting mentorship from these people, then that's going to play a big impact on your future. And then we talked about goal setting, looking at goals, looking at the things that you want to do, setting goals toward those, writing those down, and then moving toward them. When you set your goals, that's going to have a big impact on your future. And then we took a break and talked about Mother's Day and the way that Jesus transformed the way we look at mothers. And then we went back last week, and Adam talked about infatuation and our choices in that realm and how they impact our future. So today, we can't look at Proverbs without recognizing that it comes back and back and back to this point of words and our mouths and the way we speak. And the way that we speak plays a big impact on our future. It brings good and it brings bad. It brings ruin and it brings life. So we've talked about this before. I've talked about this a little bit on a different slant, but we can't look at Proverbs without talking about it. And it's part of our lives, whether we recognize it or not. And I think some of this stuff, you may be like, well, yeah, I've heard it before. Yeah, okay, yeah, be nice. Talk well, don't gossip. Yep, got it, sweet. But how often do we actually think about that and engage that idea of the words that we use will change our future? The words that we use now will have an impact on where I'm going, who I'm hanging out with, the relationships I have, my marriage, my family, my job. How often do we think about the words that we use in those environments and the way that they shape those environments? A stand-up comedian was talking about words, and he said that there are some words that just don't really mean anything. They, by themselves, they don't mean anything. Like the phrase "sort of." Sort of doesn't mean anything by itself. If you think about it, sort of, all alone, has no value. But at the end of certain things, sort of can mean everything. Like at the end of the statement, "I love you." Or at the end of the statement, "You're going to live." Or, "It's a boy." It changes it. It puts a different slant on what that sentence means, right? So there are some of these words that we use day to day that put us on a different trajectory. For me, this was a tough lesson to learn as a child. I had to learn it at the consequence of the soap in the mouth, wash your mouth out with soap kind of deal. And I think that came about when I was heading to school, and our bus driver used to ask this question like every week or every month or something. And she would always ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I didn't know. And I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to be. But I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I got to say something. And so I was like, oh, I heard this thing on TV. I don't know what it is. I want to be an exotic dancer. And everybody laughed, and I was like, sweet, that's what I'm going to be. It's funny. It's great. Okay, I don't know what it is. My parents found out about that, told me not to say that. I think I may have continued to say that. I got my mouth washed out with soap. There's that story right there. But it can be bigger than that, too. I mean, there's relationships at stake with our words. I had a good friend in college who, we had this kind of relationship where we were friends and we would do things together, but what we really loved to do together was come up with a topic or an idea or something, and then we would argue about it. Like he would take one side and I would take the other side, and we would argue about this idea. Most of the time it was pretty half-heartedly. Most of the time it was, how are we going to get to some resolution of this? This is something, or it's something that's important to us, but we just want to talk it through and kind of figure out the ideas and come to some end conclusion together by arguing it out. But there was this one topic, this one thing that we got on, and we ended up like really rooted on opposite sides of this. And it turned from this casual, fun, time-killing conversation thing to like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And we just kept, and it got like heated, and it would get bitter, and then it turned into this thing where the words we were saying to each other just lost kindness. And it became more about being right than being friends. And I think we've all got that story in our life, something where our words have made a difference and had a negative influence on friendships. I've got a buddy who is kind of the opposite of me. We've got a picture of him. His name is Cliff, as he's very stoic. He's a very stoic man with a big beard. And when I first met this guy, Cliff, I saw him and I was like, oh, dude, you're intimidating, man. You're big and bearded and you don't talk much. And I'm like loud and obnoxious and I talk all the time. You've got to think I'm an idiot. But I started talking to him and we were hanging out more and more. And I got to this point where I could ask him, Cliff, why do you talk so little? Why do you not talk so much? Why do you not engage in just all this joking kind of stuff? And he goes, well, when I was 13, I remember coming home from school and I told my mom, Mom, I don't think I'm going to talk very much anymore. She was like, why, Cliff? Well, I found out that if you talk a lot, people don't really listen to what you say. You just kind of blabber on and nobody hears what you say. But if you don't talk very much, when you talk, people listen to you. And so I don't think I'm going to talk very much. So I met him 10, 15 years after he made this decision, and the guy still doesn't talk very much. And he's still very stoic and a quiet guy. And then once you talk to him and once you get to hear what he's got to say, your ears perk up. I don't know if you know someone like this who, when they talk, you just go, oh yeah, okay, I'm listening, yeah. You got my ear. And that's part of this choice of how we use our words. He made this conscious choice to say, I'm going to talk less, but it doesn't have to exactly be that. It could just be this choice of say, I'm going to talk better. Because these choices really do make a difference in where we're headed. We can look at this on a personal level like this, or we can look on it on a large scale and see the truth of this on a large scale, the way that words have this formative power for the future. We can look at just the United States as an example and say, okay, the Declaration of Independence is this group of words that set our country in a different course, on a different in a different trajectory. And it's these words, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that move us in a direction Without those, or with different words, we'd be headed in a different direction. And then from there, we've got the Constitution and this document that says this is the kind of nation we're going to be, that we're going to do this and we're not going to do this. And these words are what's going to form our laws and the way that we work. And nations that work and last a long time have this. Businesses, companies that last and are successful have this. They've got these words that they come back to that say, we're going to do this, we're not going to do this. And then even along the way, there's these mid-course corrections that are marked by words in our history, by the Gettysburg Address, for an example, where Abraham Lincoln says, we're going to fight for a more perfect union. We're going to fight for a country that's free of this slavery. And when we come together again, we will be more perfect and we will be better for that. And those words helped put that course on a different trajectory and moved the future of the United States in a different way. And then to even more emphasize the point, we all know Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, right? We know those words because they were formative in ending segregation. They were formative, and they were this ultimate speech of where we were headed next, of where we were going. And this can also be true in the negative sense on a large scale, that Hitler came to power in large because of the way he could speak, the way he could rally a group of people around an idea. Mussolini is the same thing, rallying people by words, by the speech, by the words that we use and the words that we choose. So if it's true on that large scale, that it can set our course in a different direction, good or bad, then it's got to be true in our lives too, that we can, by our words, set our lives toward good, or set our lives toward bad and evil and ruin. And this is exactly what Proverbs says. Proverbs talks about words over and over, and I just pulled a few out, and I'm just going to read them. And notice as I read this, they're not going to be on the screen, so you just got to listen. That's all right. And it's good and bad. There's a pairing of good and bad. Your words lead to good, your words lead to bad. So just listen through this and see this kind of the way that our words work. All right. The mouth of a good person is a deep, life-giving well, but the mouth of the wicked is a dark cave of abuse. The words of the wicked kill. The speech of the upright saves. Rash language cuts and maims, but there is healing in the words of the wise. Careful words make for a careful life. Careless talk may ruin everything. Gracious speech is like clover honey, good taste to the soul, quick energy for the body. But mean people spread mean gossip. Their words smart and burn. Words satisfy the mind as much as fruit does the stomach. Good talk is as gratifying as a good harvest. Words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. So this says, words bring something about. They're either poison and they kill, or they're fruit and they give life. Now it's easy for us to listen to this and say, I wish my boss could hear that. He sucks. He says terrible things all the time, and it really makes me feel bad. Or, I wish my husband could hear this, or I wish that my parents would hear this. But it's not so much, Proverbs isn't talking to us as victims of this. There is a place for that. There is a place, words hurt. Words hurt, and I think we've all been hurt by them. And there is a place to deal with that grief and to deal with that pain. But there's also this understanding that Proverbs is talking to us not as victims, but as participants. Proverbs is talking to us and saying, we either bring life or we bring death through our words. We bring good through our words or we bring bad through our words. And James addresses this, and he talks a great deal about words. And he starts out by saying that we're not perfect. He says, none of us is perfectly qualified. We get it wrong nearly every time we open our mouths. If you could find someone whose speech was perfectly true, you would have a perfect person in perfect control of life. So he says, we don't get it right all the time. We don't do it. And that's not to guilt us, and that's not to shame us. That's to say, this is hard. This is hard. So we've got to address it. We've got to take a look at this. We've got to take a look at the way that our words form where we're going. Because left to our own, if we don't think about it, it's probably going to lead us in a direction that we don't want to go. I mean, why were these important speeches important? Why did we need them? Because without these speeches, we would have kept going in the same direction. We needed words to reset the course and go a different direction, because it's not our natural bent. So, James goes on to talk about the way that this works and the way that the tongue moves us. So he says, a bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. A small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. It only takes a spark, remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony to chaos, throw mud on a reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it. Smoke right out of the pit of hell. And he says, this is scary. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. The tongue runs wild, a wanton killer. With our tongues we bless God our Father, and with the same tongues we curse the very men and women he made in his image. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. And he says this with like, I can't believe it. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. We do this. We turn harmony into chaos. We turn good stuff into bad stuff. We create ruin. We destroy stuff with just our tongues. And Jesus touches on the same thing when he talks about murder in the Sermon on the Mount. He says, you're familiar with the command of the ancients, do not murder. I'm telling you that anyone who is so much as angry with a brother or sister is guilty of murder. Carelessly call a brother idiot, and you just might find yourself hauled into court. Thoughtlessly yell stupid at a sister, and you are on the brink of hellfire. The simple moral fact is that words kill. So, where does that leave us? Words hurt, and words bring life. But so what's the application? What do we do with that? Is it as simple as, just speak well, be kind to people, have nice words, don't gossip? Yeah, it is. It's as simple as being conscious about our speech. It's as simple as thinking before we talk. And thinking, am I bringing good stuff or am I bringing bad stuff? What's the end result of my speech here? But there's also this point where we say, okay, yeah, but how? How do I do that? How do I speak better? How do I speak more kindly? How do I talk about things that aren't gossip? How do I talk about things that are different from the things I know I shouldn't be talking about? And I think Proverbs has some wisdom here too. I think Proverbs has an answer to, well, okay, if you're having trouble, maybe this is where you should direct your speech. Maybe this is something you should get behind to start talking better. This section starts out, the words of King Lemuel, the strong advice his mother gave him. So thank you, moms, for your advice. It just might end up in the Bible. Well, not now, but, could have. So, she says to her son, the king, speak up for the people who have no voice, for the rights of all the down and outers. Speak out for justice. Stand up for the poor and destitute. I think I used another translation on the screen, so I'm going to read that too. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. So yeah, on one hand, it's as simple as speak well. But on the other hand, there's also this idea of, well, speak for something. Speak for something. Get behind something. Speak for someone who can't speak for themselves. Speak for a cause that is just. Speak for an idea, a movement that is just and that is good and that cares for people. And when you're speaking for something like that, when you get involved, when you get behind something like that, your speech will be about something that's exciting to you. Your speech will be about this idea, this movement, this thing that you're involved in. And you won't have this empty space in your brain to say, well, I got to talk about something. I might as well talk about Jack over there because he sucks and I could talk about that forever. You know? You're going to talk about something else. And maybe here's another idea too. Ideas. Talk about ideas. Read to get stuff going on in your brain. Read so you can have conversations that are like, yeah, you know what I've been thinking of? You know what I was reading? You know what you know what I've been wrestling with? You know this stuff that, this is really cool. I just learned this. I just found this out. And when you've got some ideas that are behind you, you know, that's something worth talking about. That's something worth fleshing out and trying to understand and wrestle with. And that's going to, again, keep our mouths from talking about stuff that we don't want to because we're excited about something. And because those ideas and then our speech because of that will shoot us off in a direction. Will shoot us off in a direction that's positive and that's good and that's exciting and that's building something and that's bringing life instead of destroying things. And if you're looking for an idea or if you're looking for a movement or something to get behind, I mean, there are no words in the human history that have had as much a formative impact as the words of the Bible. We've talked about this as it relates to hospitals and orphanages and medics and the way that women can exist in the world because of the cultural shift that the Bible has brought, that the words of Jesus have brought. And I think there's nothing bigger than that. There's no shift that's bigger. There's no cultural change bigger than the one that's attached to the words of the Bible and that's inspired by them. And then on a personal level, there's no change personally that's as big as saying, I mess myself up over and over again. I will continue to do it. I mess myself up. I get myself in trouble. I ruin my life. And Jesus, you got to save me because I can't do it. Because where I ruin myself, you can fix myself. You can fix me. You can make me better, and I can't do it, and you can do it, and only you can do it. I mean, those are formative words, personally. Those are words that'll take your life in a different direction. I think anybody who said that, anybody who's really engaged in that conversation will tell you, yeah, those are big words. So, if that's a new idea to you, if that's something you've been checking out for a while, if you've been hanging around and trying to figure out who Jesus is, that as far as saying words go, I think those are the biggest words you can say for life change. And also, if that's something that you've said, if that's something that you continue to say over and over again, well, there's another message of, okay, so let's get behind the idea of it. And let's start pouring into that movement and that idea and these things that bring justice and these things that bring good and these things that bring life, and speak up for the people who can't speak for themselves, because that's part of that too. I'm going to pray right now and give us the time to do that, and then we're going to sing some more and roll on. So, thanks, God. Thanks for this call to speak for something. To speak well, yeah. And to talk about people well, yeah. And to also get behind these things that bring life. And speak about these things that bring life. And to be people that bring life in our workplace, and life in our marriage, and life in our families, and on our teams, and wherever we are. Thank you for that opportunity. And thanks for the opportunity to tell you that we need you. And the way that that shifts our life. The way that it's not easy all the time. But it's better. But it's good. But it's what we need. Just thank you, God, for that. Thanks for giving us words. And I pray that you can help us use them well. And use them for you. And use them to build and not to destroy.
Okay, so Proverbs, we put that to rest, and yet I continue to challenge you to, a proverb a day. What is that little saying? Like, keeps the doctor away? Would that be? Just kidding. Anyway, there's a lot in there about words, as you know, if you've spent any time in it in the last week. And speaking of words, if you're outside of the culture of the middle school and high school, if you're outside of the culture of middle school and high school, bad sentence choice, awkward ending, then there's probably some information out there about what's going on within that realm, in addition to what you heard on the news about end of the year party and stuff that you may not know. And so kind of just I can't talk. I should have talked and then I could talk. In keeping with our desire to just kind of communicate, so James has got an announcement for you, is what I'm trying to get to. Wow.
Thank you for
you
that
should have my job.
That was awesome. So for the last the last month or so, and kind of as we've been going through this Back to Your Future stuff, I was like, oh yeah, shoot, man, I should maybe make some goals for my future. And as I was working through that, I was kind of looking at, what do I need to do? What kind of jobs am I in the right one? And I think through a lot of wrestling and through some guidance and some good conversations, I came to this understanding that, I think I gotta make a change. I think I gotta choose a different career and head in a different direction. And it's not out of any sense of being burnt out or tired or not liking what I was doing, or there's no backstory behind like any conflict with staff or anything like that. It's been awesome. It's been an excellent year. But a couple weeks ago, I just told Adam that I think I gotta go a different direction. And I'm extremely proud to be a part of this church and this movement, and it's been awesome. And it will continue to be, because I'm not planning on moving out of Helena. I'd like to stay in Helena, but just getting a different job. And so that means resigning from the one I have. So I'll no longer be the student ministries guy, but I'll still be around.
Yeah. So we're sad, and yet personally I can say as a friend of James, I'm excited for him and kind of where things are headed. So thanks, James, and we're proud of you. And you guys should all know that myself and the council is very proud of James and the way this process has kind of been handled, because there's been a lot of chips on the table and some really candid conversation. And it's been really refreshing to be able to have candid adult conversation. And yeah, it's been really healthy. So you should be proud of James in that regard. Sure love you guys. Have a great week.